Yes. Welcome back to the Bees Like That podcast. As always, I'm your host, Chris. What is it today now? Day 17, Black History Month 2024. I feel good about that. Because with every episode, with every effort that I make in the realm of services, with every effort that I make in securing access, equitable access, I believe in my heart that I am making Black history. In fact, I know I am, because in my current role, I've shared this before, at the tables that I sit at with my specific title and role, I am the first. Not only am I the first, but I'm the only right now in my region. This is important. This is especially important because I'm the first. It's important to me because I'm the first and only in my county, in my city as well. This is a huge accomplishment for me. For y'all out there who know and can appreciate my story of redemption and clawing my way out of desperation and being homeless and physically dependent on drugs and alcohol, you know that in itself is no short feat, and that this in itself is no short feat. In my job, I encounter people who, like me, and this has been a theme since I've been in services, and it's not a surprise because I've worked at community detox, I've worked in housing, serving unsheltered populations, and now I work in services in a different capacity. Consistently throughout, I've worked with individuals who, like me, experience and have been impacted by addiction. Substance use disorder, to be more specific. And I've shared what I'm about to share before. I've shared a story in an experience via a story about elements of my childhood and how I was impacted by addiction. I'm going to do that again because I feel like while I was called, it was put on my heart again tonight to talk about it, you know? And like I say, these are things that I'll continue to talk about because there are, in fact, hey, listen, we are up 2 or 3 subscribers in the last week, y'all. So not that they don't now have access to, or wouldn't otherwise have access to all of my other content. I'm going to make it really easy for them to access this part of it, because I think it's one of the most impactful and most important. It is, at least personally, right? So I'm going to paint a picture for you. When I was a boy, I mean, from the time I could form memories, you know, but in particular from between the ages of 5 and 7, 5 and 9. Drugs. Random drug addicts in my home, my dad being high and prioritizing his habits above everything else but the absolute bare bones necessities, right? So if we could get it from the food bank, don't knock on the food bank, because even in my adult life, I access the food bank. The food bank's cracking sometimes. They got some good stuff there. And I see people who access the food bank now, and it's not as taboo. There's not as much stigma as they're attached to it these days. Now it's like a hipster thing to do, right? Like it's cool. It's couture to do, right? But it wasn't when I was growing up, right? So all but the bare bones necessities. So this meant, shit, bro, we live in an apartment with coin op, laundry services. Homie, we're not doing laundry. That money's getting spent. That money's getting spent. As a boy, I had no control. I had no voice, like most children. You know what I mean? Like even outside of my experience with my father, my parents, with their pathology and their toxicity and their relationship and addiction and whatever that stuff looked like. Children in general, right? Like, because as kids, we're the ones that are being taught. We're the ones that are being guided. Like, we look to the shepherds and the abbots, our parents, the leaders, the ones charged with our care to guide us. And it didn't matter in my circumstance, it didn't really matter how I felt. How hungry I was, how tired, or how scared I might have been. All I could do through any of my childhood, any of my experiences, any of the pain I went through, was sit, watch, and endure. That's it. I couldn't do shit. Couldn't do nothing. The experience of watching my babysitter shoot heroin, or what experience of seeing for my first time a person shoot heroin, and that person being my babysitter, me being about 6.5, 7 years old. I couldn't do nothing about that. Couldn't tell nobody about it. I could tell him, look, what am I gonna do? I'm telling my dad. If I told my dad, he would have got mad at me because now he's down a babysitter, right? And it's my fault because if I had not told him, everything would have been copacetic, however you say that shit. But then it was terrifying. Now, something that I feel like I have to mention this. I'm not all the way convinced that this isn't something that people just know, but maybe it isn't. But these feelings of powerlessness and feeling voiceless, they don't just go away when we move out of situations like I was in. Like me moving from my dad's to my mom's when she came back into my life on a consistent basis, moving back to the city where I'm from. Those feelings didn't just go away. That anxiety and all that stuff is still there. Now, in a new environment, I'm faced with a whole host of new issues. I'm not going to talk about that stuff today. But I just wanted to highlight that this stuff persists, right? It persists into preteens, teens, young adulthood, middle age. And it just so happens that if a person has an experience like I have, and addiction is part of your story, substance use disorder to be specific, if this is a part of your story, that feeling of powerlessness, it doesn't just stay with you, but it grows and becomes more and more powerful. And it's feeding on itself, growing and growing and growing. And now it's manifesting this way, not just internally, but outwardly, because it's generating from within. And that is one of the most sinister parts about it, because now I'm an adult. Now it doesn't matter whose fault it was before. Now none of that matters, because now I'm the one who's messed up. I'm the one who has these issues that I need to fix. I'm the one who's ruined all of these relationships. I'm the one who's burnt these bridges. I'm my parents. This has been me. And I've said before, growing up, my dad wasn't violent towards me. He wasn't really like a violent person. Like, he wasn't, like, if you picture a crackhead, someone who's like unpredictable and, they may not be like a tough guy, you know what I mean? But, violence is not something that they have an aversion to. They'll crack you upside the head with something if they feel like you have something they want. Just, they might dope fiend you. That's where that term dope fiend comes from. They'll dope fiend you not to hurt you, but just to incapacitate you enough to get whatever it is they want to get up off of you and mash out. But my dad would go there. Don't make any mistake now. My dad was from Detroit, so, he knew how serious life could get. And living in Bellingham, he knew what the stakes are. So, he may not tussle with you. He may not, trade punches with you, but he would be quick to put on a boiling pot of water. It was really peculiar how, like, in the instances where my dad may have had to become violent with someone, how there's always just seemed to be some hot grease or some oatmeal or some boiling water with some vegetable oil or some Crisco in it that was handy. My dad used to intimidate quite a few people. Man, he wasn't just pump faking either. Now he would have tossed it on you if you really wanted that smoke like that. But illustrating the point in closing out that kind of tangential rant there, my dad was not violent to me. This doesn't mean that I wasn't afraid of him, right? Because when my dad got high, he wasn't a highly, like, emotional dude like with me. We didn't have, in my childhood, like, an emotional connection. We may have, like, my mom tells me about when I was younger, when I was real small. We did. But as I began to grow, I felt less and less of that. And then I realized now that wasn't due to me becoming bigger and not being, it wasn't like puppy syndrome. I realized that what had happened is my dad was just growing sicker as I became older, right? That's what that was. I didn't know that when I was a boy. And to really drive this point home, I got maybe 5 whippings from my dad my whole life. They were real. My dad was the type to, like, make me go get my own implement. He would go fetch a switch. Oof. Bro, and look, if I came back with something that he knew that I knew was some BS, if he had to get up and go get it, ooh, no. So you bring back the proper switch. For y'all who know, you know. But yeah, my dad, he didn't really put hands. He didn't beat me like that. He was just disconnected, man, just cold, and that was scary. So I guess in a sense, if you were to ask the question, was I safe with my dad? As a practical matter, if we're just talking about like physical abuse and violence, the answer would be yes, right? However, I wasn't always with my dad. My dad was a drug addict, so he was a rolling stone. He was out moving and grooving, doing his thing. However, he had to get his little chippers up to get money for his habit. Now, that meant that I spent a lot of time with his partner, who would end up becoming his common law wife. I think they may have made it official at some point, but I was gone at that point. But she was a dingbat of the official order, and I don't mean like flighty, because that was definitely true. But she was heavily addicted to pills, like on a bunch of psych meds, and she just had like some pretty severe mental health issues. And I don't know how her and my dad ended up together, because she was straight up racist, man. I'll get into stories about that at some point, but I mean, this woman would routinely beat me for sports. She would humiliate me. I mean, I'm talking about as a young kid. Humiliate me publicly in front of her daughter and the neighborhood kids and neighbors and everything by openly mocking me for being a bedwetter. I started wetting the bed when I was 2. I didn't quit till I was about 12. But you just close your eyes and picture like being at a neighbor's house. There's other kids around, and the adults are sitting at the coffee table, and she just like starts clowning you for wetting the bed, because she is frustrated that I wet the bed every night and I create dirty laundry, right? That's how embarrassing that is, you know? At meal times, another thing that she would do would be to make me sit on the floor and wait for her and her daughter to finish their meal. And they would go slow as hell on purpose, bro. Like my dad's partner would usually like get hers done in a reasonable amount of time. But her daughter, bro, she would just sit there, kick it, set her bowl down, play with her toys, come back to it a few minutes later, take a little bite, just scratching at it, and not even really eat the whole thing. And whatever was left in her dish was part of my main dish, along with, you know, whatever leftovers, because his partner would generally just cook for the two of them, and there would be some little leftovers, and that would be what I would get. But I had to wait until they were both done, and then I would get the leftovers, which was generally, like, she wouldn't heat it up for me. It would be cold as hell and just nasty. But it be like that. That was just part of it. I wasn't safe from an older cousin who I've shared about this, who sexually abused me and assaulted me when I was a kid. I'm not going to get into too many details about that here. I'm not uncomfortable sharing it, but I'm working on how I want to do that. But anyway, just to like highlight that issue as well. Now I don't know about other children, but who like were in my neighborhood and in our apartment complex who were also poor as hell. Parents was also on drugs. Oh man, I grew up with a lot. So many of my neighborhood friends, like their parents they drink and like smoke weed and like there's just general partiers and like just kids themselves trying to figure it out. That's one thing that dawned on me is like back then we were that small. These people were like, you know, late 20s, early 30s. So like they were still trying to figure stuff out, you know, and not doing very well. But I don't know about any of them, but my dad more than once left me at the DSHS office when they would cut off his food stamps. It reportedly, I guess, I don't know, there was some issue about someone reporting him for selling them. Shortchanging was a thing we used to do back in the day. Or you could just straight up sell your book. For real. Those of you out there who are old enough to remember, food stamps used to actually come and they would look like Monopoly money, come in 5, 10s, whatever, 20s. And when you would buy something and you didn't spend whatever that bill was, like completely, stores would give you back regular cash. So there was a thing called shortchanging, where you would just go store to store. Usually parents would have their kids go in and buy little candies or whatever, just little one item purchases and then get that cash back. Anyway, more than once they got cut off because of that and some, like other stuff. And my dad's answer would be, and I'm talking about this I'm little, remember? So this stuff all seems huge to me. In the middle of the DSHS lobby, I don't know why I have trouble saying that today. In the middle of the DSHS lobby, he would, and I quote, yell, "Well, you fucking feed him then." And he would like jerk his hand away from mine because I'd be standing there holding his hand. I don't know what's going on. This was a little boy. And we walk out. You leave me there. Most of the time, it would be a couple of minutes, maybe 10, and then he would come back in and grab me. One time, it was almost 3 hours, and his partner, for whatever her issues were, he wasn't going to come back and get me. She came and got me, and I remember listening to him being in a fight, getting into a fight over it because she came and got me. He was going to actually like leave me there. That would have been it. Now I'm not. These are all like my real life experiences, and just some of them. I'm just like some of the highlights. I have some real bangers that I could share. Like when I say things like I check a lot of boxes, I check a lot of boxes. I'm a sociological, data-driven daydream, right? Like for people who are into data and like sociological facts like that, my life is something that could be studied forensically for a while. and not just because of what I went through, but how I'm here today and not a complete basket case. I don't know. Well, I do know, but I don't think that a lot of the gory detail is needed. I think that the highlights like this and how I'm able to deliver the message should be enough. Now, for you, like, sensationalists out there that like that kind of stuff, man, I'm not going to say it, but you can check out A&E. There's plenty of stories on there. You could get your fix that way. But I use my experience to relate pain to the world or those out there who haven't had my experiences before, right? Because if you can get a glimpse behind the curtain of the life of and childhood of people like me, maybe you might be able to find an opening for some understanding, some grace. If you have someone in your life going through it, or when you see people going through it, and you can't understand how they can't just snap themselves out of it. There's a lot to be done. But I also use my experiences to share hope with people who have come from similar experiences and backgrounds that I come from. And like I say, I want to keep visible for these people, for my people, an example of practical recovery and how I recover and have consistently recovered every single day for the last 5 years, over 5 years. And for those of you out there who know me well enough to know this in itself is remarkable. Like, for real. The gift and the skills that I have for speaking, I think honestly, and this is not a flex, it's just like I reflect on this stuff a lot, and you know, because people they're like, how do you do this, and how do you say these things, and how are you so eloquent? One, I like to read and I like to inform myself, and two, I think that vocabulary is one of a healthy vocabulary is one of the better indicators for overall intelligence and ability. And I think that it demonstrates a rapid appreciation of my general utility, my purpose, my self-worth, my confidence, and what it actually is that powers and fuels my passion. Because there's a gang of people out there who are content creators, and you know they are all over YouTube with sensational stories and horror stories and stuff like this. But there's I think a distinct separation between what I'm doing and the things that are done by other people that, I don't know, at least to me, seem to be obviously selfish, ego-driven, and self-interest driven. And that distinction is just what I shared too, and like what I'm about to share. I don't know many other people who are brave enough to expose themselves the way that I do. Because it's not like I have a gang of followers or subscribers. But, you know, I get decent views, and it seems like people are beginning to share the content and the message more. But again, the reason why I do it is to inform and to spread a message of hope and healing. Because you can't expect, this is something that I have to do on a daily basis and remind myself that I cannot expect my reaction to the things that I've gone through from other people. I almost daily have to suspend this thing. Because when faced with some of the hardest things that I've ever had to go through, there was not a question in my mind about what the next step would be. I was instantly convicted, highly motivated, and there was nothing that was going to stand in my way. Like that second, and I'm that solid from like day one. Now, there were times along that way, like I've shared, that I cried and I was frustrated and became discouraged and had thoughts of giving up, but there's no way that I was gonna. There was absolutely no way I was gonna. A few reasons. One, I had the power of God. Two, I'm a petty. Hey, listen. My wife and I were joking about this the other day. I am not the high road guy. I have a chip on my shoulder. I don't care who knows it. I got a lot to prove, not just to myself, but to the world. And I feel fortunate that I have avenues and opportunities in front of me that are going to allow me to do that in cheerful, generous, and meaningful ways. And I work on the pettiness, man, but listen, my whole take on that thing is like, don't start none, won't be none. Like, you want to get petty with me, we can take it to a whole nother level that you're not ready. You're not ready for it. Yeah, that's funny. I won't take up too much more of y'all time, man, but I did want to share that. And the reason that I wanted to share that is, in my work, like I say, again, I encounter a lot of people who, like me, are impacted by some heavy things, and they have in front of them odds that seem insurmountable, and one of them being abstinence and recovery. Now, it is my goal to support individuals in 100% recovery. Right? I completely understand that there's a spectrum there, but that's my approach because I understand what's at stake. You know what I'm saying? I understand what's at stake. I'm still that little kid. I just got all this hair, and my body's a bit different. My psychology's a bit different, but deep down, I'm still that little kid that couldn't get away. I'm that little kid that didn't have a voice. I'm that little kid that just had to sit and endure because there was nothing else that I could do. With every adult in my life did what it was that they wanted to do. Be it drugs, abuse me, ignore me, abandon me, let me go hungry. I had no control. So my efforts to support individuals in 100% recovery don't just have to do with helping them save their lives. But I myself, I have a PhD in understanding the implications of being kids who are powerless like that. Straight up. Appreciate y'all listening. If you didn't do it on the way in, think about doing it on the way out. Hit that like, subscribe, and post notification bell so you can stay up to date on all of the cool badassery, tomfoolery. We do have fun here, y'all. I know it's been pretty serious the last few episodes, but I do have some fun times here. It's just not all serious, but I deliver what God puts on my heart, and He put this on my heart tonight. Peace, y'all.